Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody on this platform. I'd like to welcome everybody. I see a lot of people. I see Stella Adeogun. I see Olukunle Adeogun. Okay, I'm seeing Joy. Okay, I see Caris. I see Franklin. Okay, I see Henry. Okay, I see Abiodun. Okay, I see Tolulope. Okay. Oh, I see Tessie. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody on this platform today. I'd like to welcome everyone officially to this event, this Zoom event, the Zoom Interactive Day. We are doing this in conjunction with VGC Fora, and like you all know, Tranquil on Quest is a substance abuse and mental health facility in Lekki, Lagos, Nigeria. Like you all know, this is an opportunity to engage with experts to know how we can better manage our mental health, how we can manage crisis in general. The way the society has become, a lot of people go through a lot of issues that I mean, crisis, family crisis, financial crisis, relationship crisis, work-related crisis. And, the situation of the country has made it so much that you just have to get everything, under control. We've been taught about resilience, we've been taught about how to sleep better, we've been taught about how to manage our relationships better. So many of those things are just geared towards ensuring we can have psychological balance such that we will not break down, so that we don't break down as individuals. And at this point, these are the things we'll be learning today. And for us, we want to give a kudos to the VGC Fora for this opportunity to have this Zoom interactive day. To begin this sessions, at this point, I would like to read the citation of our guest today, and Dr. Gbonjubola Babalola.
Dr. Gbonjubola Babalola is a consultant psychiatrist, managerial psychologist, and the medical director of Tranquil and Quest, Lagos, Nigeria, Nigerian premium private brand in the provision of various forms of mental health and substance abuse recovery services. She has received trainings from the King's College London, the University of Washington, and the prestigious Harvard University, Boston, USA. Dr. Gbonjubola Babalola is passionate about research in child and adolescent forensic, women's mental health, and occupational mental health. She is a mental health advocate and influencer who is driven by the holistic view to health, and as such is a regular voice on various sprints, electronic media, and public programs. She has also used her knowledge in psychiatry and psychology to influence and maximize effectiveness and productivity in the workplace via the Employee Assistance Program. She is a co-author of the book titled Mental Health in the Workplace. Gbonjubola Babalola regularly attends both local and international conferences where she presents findings from local research in a field on a global scale. She is a member of the Global Advisory Council of Joy International. She is a fellow of the West African College of Physicians, a member of the Nigerian Medical Association, the Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria, the Employee Assistant Professionals Association, and the American Psychiatric Association. Please make welcome Dr. Gbonjubola Babalola.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's session. I've been very well introduced, and I would like to welcome each and every one of you to this panel, a panel where we're hopeful that this will be one of many sessions that we'll be holding with the VGC Property Owners and Residents Association. I feel like this conversation is timely because of the times that we're in. And it's for that reason that today we'll be discussing emotional and psychological well-being in times of crisis. By way of introduction, I would like to ask us, between the past, the present, and the future. Which do we think we have control over? So we started the session this afternoon with a question. If you could choose between the past, the present, and the future, which do you have control over? I will give us a few minutes to think about that question, and I would encourage you to please post your answers in the chat box. Remember, there are no right or wrong answers, so we're going to try to make this as interactive as possible. The past, the present, and the future, which do you think you have control over? And that is the question of the day, and with that, we start today's session. I'll give you a few minutes to use the chat box to respond. All right. I'm hopeful that a couple of us have been able to put our questions in the chat box to respond as to which of the times do we have control over, the past, the present, or the future. I will unveil the responses at the end, but like I said, there's no right or wrong answers. And again, today, the topic of discourse is our emotional and psychological well-being in time of crisis. When 2020 started, a lot of us had high hopes. We had expectations. We had wishes, dreams, and desires. Some of us wanted to tour the world. Some wanted to get married. Some were thinking about getting a new job. But some were in Wuhan, China on the 31st of December, 2019. The coronavirus had started. And by the end of February 2020, we were pretty much aware, especially as we had the first case in Nigeria. The past few months have been nothing short of unexpected, especially as these are unprecedented times. No one probably could think about the realities that we have found ourselves in. Words that we could barely just pick from the dictionaries became our realities. And so words like isolation, social distancing, lockdown, quarantine now became the regular order of the day. Interestingly, the occurrence of the coronavirus pandemic is what is often described as a traumatic event. And of course, a traumatic event is a significant, stressful life event. It's a time of crisis, and it's a crisis because it came and is still around and came with a lot of intense difficulty and danger. Usually when there's a crisis, individual and global resources are stretched. As individuals, we are put under a lot of strain and stress. And we found a lot of that going on during these times, especially as even the best healthcare systems in the world, Italy, to mention but a few, came under a lot of pressure and strain. And it showed, the reality of us as human beings, the frailty of human existence, and how mundane, the things many times we hold on so tightly to. And it's for that reason, this afternoon that we want to speak to you about emotional and psychological well-being, especially because the conversation on mental health is one that concerns all of us. I often always say that as long as an individual has a brain, you have mental health. Health, of course, is not just the absence of disease or infirmity, but a complete state of physical, mental, and social well-being. However, in defining mental health, you can say that an individual is mentally healthy when they are able to successfully perform the functions of thoughts, emotions, cognition, and behavior in such a way that they can engage in productive activities, they can cope with the normal stresses of life, they can have thriving relationships with other individuals, And last but not the least is that they can make their own contribution or their own quota to the environment. So one, not just one, makes you mentally well or mentally healthy. A combination of all of these four things that I just stated make an individual mentally well. Well-being, on the other hand, is a state of being well. The good thing about well-being is that beyond mental health or beyond health that just looks at physical, mental, and social well-being, well-being looks at our emotional health, our occupational health, our physical health, our social health, our spiritual health, our intellectual health, and last but not the least, a lot of people like to hear this as well, our financial health. So quite often, mental health and well-being are interwoven, and people often think that these two things may actually mean the same thing. Because when you are well in all those aspects of your life, you are likely to be able to be productive in your activities. You can have thriving relationships with other people. You can contribute your own quota to the environment. And of course, you can cope with the normal stresses of life. That's a WHO definition. And interestingly, you hear me say normal stresses of life. And that's because stress is a part of our lives. A part of our lives that may not be going anywhere soon, because there are things around us, and those things can be people, places, or processes that are a stressor to each of our lives. Mental health, of course, includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. And it has to do with how we think, how we feel, and how we act. Very often we say that our thoughts impact on our beliefs, and our beliefs impact on our behavior. So, thinking, feeling, and acting, we are thinking beings, we are feeling beings, and we are acting beings. And of course, mental health can affect all of these aspects of our lives. Whether or not we are mentally healthy as well can help us determine how we handle stress, how we relate to others, how we make choices about certain things in our lives. For quite a number of people, it's not easy to make a choice or to solve problems or to make a decision. When you are mentally healthy, you can do all of these things. All of us have mental health. However, every once in a while, some of us may break down with a mental illness. The good news about a time of crisis, however, is that we can cope with crisis, is that we can find opportunities in crisis. And quite a number of times it's about perception. What do you see? When do you see it? How do you see it? A number of people would see a donut. Some see the hole, but some see the dough. And some other people, they would look at a glass, and some people would see it as half full or half empty. How we perceive stress is one of the biggest ways that we can cope or break down when stress comes. Remember I said that stress is normal, and it is normal. But over time, what we have found is that it is the belief about stress that actually makes individuals wilt under stress. The biggest stress in Lagos is, at least before the lockdown came up, what do we think the biggest source of stress in Lagos was? Can we have some answers in the chat box? What do you think the biggest contributor to stress in Lagos was before the lockdown? Or probably still is, because it's still with us. If you were asked the biggest source of stress in Lagos, what would you say it is? Thank you very much. I have a couple of responses going on. And it's important that somehow we may agree on what the biggest source of stress is in Lagos. If you had asked me, I mean, all the responses I have here are one and the same. Traffic. And the truth is, traffic may not be going anywhere soon, especially because Lagos is a mega city. But if you start to change your perception about traffic or change how you cope with traffic, so for instance, you can decide to get to work early and leave late because you're trying to cope with traffic. It may not always be pleasurable, but at least you found a way to cope with it. And that's why this afternoon, one of the coping skills that I would also be mentioning beyond resilience, which was previously mentioned, is that of emotional intelligence. The fact that being aware of ourselves, being able to manage and regulate our own selves, and also being able to manage other people is a learnable skill. No one is born with 100% emotional intelligence. And what Daniel Goleman had shown us when he was studying emotional intelligence is that in this age and time, book knowledge is not enough anymore. We're finding that there are quite a number of people who are fantastic. They had 2-1s, they had first classes, but when they come to the workplace or in communities, they cannot function because they don't have people skills. When the COVID-19 came, a lot of us responded differently. Some were in denial, some were angry. Some found out that they were extremely pressured, some were confused, some were not sleeping well, some could not eat well. And by the time the lockdown came, people were living with spouses and children that they did not spend so much time with in decades. And then the reality started hitting on everyone. The reality on our relationships, the reality on our finances, the reality on our work. We started working from home. And you know, over years, people have often thought that people who work from home, they don't do anything. Reality started hitting all of us. And when crisis happens, because crisis stretches our resources, either personal, familiar resources, financial resources, it has effects on all of us in different ways. All of us went through the COVID-19 pandemic, but some of us may have seen it as a blessing, others may have seen it as a curse, either because of things that may have happened to them at the time. The effects of a crisis can be immediate, mid-term, and long-term. How do you cope when you are under stress? If you're willing to share how you cope when you are under stress, please could you drop a few answers in the chat box? We all face stress every day. At home, on the road, at our workplaces, in our religious places, even in our own minds. When you are under stress as an individual, how do you cope? And it's for that reason I would say to you that there are different ways to cope with stress when stress happens. And what we found is that people use different coping mechanisms, some adaptive, some maladaptive. The reason why these times were quite difficult was that they were peculiar times. The COVID-19 pandemic on its own was number one. Are there new strains? Are there things we don't know? How many people have died? How many people were likely to contract the virus? Then there was the news. It was in the news every day. Social media, radio, TV. It started affecting who broke down because she believed beyond explanation that she had the COVID-19. Even when a test had been done and said she didn't have it, she believed it. And then one of the things that also makes it difficult for us in this time is the uncertainty. When is it going to end? Is it ever going to go away? Is this how we'll continue living our lives? Would we need to take a vaccine? That also is a harsh reality. There's also the harsh reality of the fact that quite a number of people may have lost their jobs in this time. Some may have taken a pay cut. Some may be battling with a physical or a mental health condition, or because of this peculiar situation, some people may have developed a physical or mental health crisis. And of course, there are the people who are working from home and are under a lot of intense pressure. In coping, you can decide to cope adaptively or maladaptively. Interestingly, some people don't even know what adaptive coping is or maladaptive coping. But if you want to cope well, what you should do is either focus on the problem or focus on reducing the emotion attached to the problem. So focus on the problem, on how you can get a solution to the problem, or focus on how you can reduce your emotion as regards the problem. And some of the things you can do is get information as regards the problem on ground. Another thing that you can do is speak to someone who is more informed than you. So you may have a friend or a relative who may be able to understand the peculiarities of whatever crisis you are going through, and you just want to get information from that individual. Of course, if your friend is unable to cope with the information that you've shared with them, that's where we come in. As professionals, you can always speak to a professional about whatever problem you are going through, a professional who is well grounded in their field. We had a bit of a technical itch there. And what I was saying before the video went out is the fact that in coping maladaptively, what ones, some may find that at some point they start to cut themselves as a way of coping with pressure. And some also turn to alcohol and other substances of abuse. So in those times, for instance, during the lockdown, a couple of people were brought into us or called us and said that I'm finding that I'm beginning to use alcohol much more than usual. And some people, of course, started to depend on other substances of abuse, prescription medication. Those are unhealthy coping mechanisms. And by the time you find that you're using this more than the adaptive coping mechanisms of speaking to someone, getting information, or connecting with a professional, it's time to reach out for help. It's important to be able to take care of yourself, and yourself is physical and mental, by eating well, sleeping well, and exercising. It's important to spend time and check in with your family, friends, and counselors. It's important to engage with people and ensure that your relationships are thriving, just like the mental health definition says. It's important also that we find time to relax, meditate, take on a skill that you love, take on something that you enjoy. And it's also important that you know when you are suffering emotionally. Balance your thinking and your feeling and create psychological safety for yourself. Once in a while, you may see yourself as being vulnerable, and there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. But don't become the victim. If you need help, reach out for help and learn skills that will enable you grow. In addition to this, it's important to talk about the fact that if you need to help someone through a crisis, you should ask yourself first of all, am I in a good place to help someone through a crisis? So some of us may be dealing with different crises as regards ourselves, crises as regards loved ones, crises in our workplaces. But for you to, before you can help someone else, you need to be in a good place yourself. And something that I always say is when we're on a trip, on a plane, and the flight attendants are telling us about the safety protocols on the plane, they say that when the cabin pressure drops, the oxygen masks will fall. When the oxygen masks fall, whose mask should you put on first? You need to put on your own mask first. And so before you think of helping anyone in a crisis, you need to be in a good place yourself, mentally and physically. If you are in a good place mentally and physically, it means that you are able to have honest conversations with yourself. And of course, by this, I mean you ask yourself honest questions. You know how you feel per time. You know why you are feeling a certain way and why you are responding in a certain way. You also know what your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are. If you are able to be in a good place by yourself, then you can pull out someone or pull up someone or support someone who is going through a rough patch. And the first thing that you should do is listen. Listen to them in a non-judgmental way, in a non-biased, non-judgmental way. Reassure them that they are safe or that you can get them to safety. If there are things that they need help with, that you are sure that you can help them with, please by all means help them. You can offer to help them shop, cook, or take care of their children. Time, of course, is an invaluable asset. Sometimes some people cherish time more than gifts. And it's about, if we're in a romantic relationship, for instance, in marriages, it's important that we spend time realizing what our spouse's love languages are. Is it words of affirmation? Is it getting helped? Is it time? Is it gifts? We need to be able to know the people around us and spend quality time with them. It's important not to talk about negative emotions around people. We should try to stay away from negativity, because remember, our thoughts affect our feelings, and our feelings affect our behavior. So if our thoughts are largely negative, they would impact negatively on our beliefs, and that would impact negatively on our behavior. If you know anyone going through a trauma or crisis, encourage them to get plenty of rest and to eat well. Make sure that they also have some time to be alone, unless of course they're a danger to themselves. Encourage them to get support beyond you, especially if you are not a family member. And then make sure that they also have supportive people around them. However, if you see that, oh, you have done all that you can do, and they're still not doing very well, it may be that they need professional help. So sometimes, what are some of the situations or conditions that we see and we manage? They would include things like anxiety disorders. Anxiety is a normal feeling state. However, if the response is bigger than the threat, or it outlasts the threat, such that it starts to affect the individual's functioning in personal and occupational spheres, or even in relationships, it is a problem. So a panic disorder, a generalized anxiety disorder, can be a big pointer to the fact that there's something wrong with the individual. It can be a mood disorder, and a disorder of mood can be either a depressive disorder or a manic disorder. Depression, of course, is persistent low mood that is not reactive, that has been persistent for 2 weeks and affects the individual's functioning. For us to say that an individual is depressed, they feel hopeless, helpless, they are not interested in things that would normally excite them. Aside that, they may have guilt feelings and be crying excessively. They may not sleep well, they may not eat well. They may also have problems with sexual relationships with their spouses. And one of the red flags that we see in people who are depressed is that they may be suicidal or want to harm themselves. Many on the other side is pretty much the opposite of depression, where the individual is unduly irritable, they're energetic, they don't get tired, but they're not achieving much. And they have an over-bloated self-esteem. They believe that they have abilities to do different things that they actually do not. Mood disorders. Closely linked would be substance abuse disorders. And it's important to talk about substance abuse disorders because in this day and age, people are trying to escape reality. Some have gone through a lot of trauma as young children, either physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, or even neglect. Quite a lot of people are carrying a lot of baggage right about now. And sometimes it's the reason why they turn to the use of substance, either the use of alcohol, either the use of, prescription medication or other substances. And of course, we have eating disorders, sleeping disorders, sexual disorders, and psychotic disorders, where people start to have unusual experiences. A lot of this and more, and even conditions like workplace bullying or workplace sexual harassment, or even reduced productivity at the workplace are some of the things that we are able to help manage. One thing that I would like to leave you with today is a relaxation exercise. So whenever you feel stressed, tense, or unable to get a good night's sleep, the 4-7-8 breathing technique is something we recommend whenever you feel stressed, tense, or under a lot of pressure. Sometimes we feel like the world is on our heads, or we feel extremely overwhelmed. Whenever you do feel like this, please stop, pause a little, and breathe. And the 4-7-8 breathing exercise, the best way to do it is to close your eyes and bring your mind to what exactly it is that you're doing at that time. And what you're trying to do at that time is to breathe. You first of all empty your lungs through your mouth. You breathe in through your nose. So you breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7 seconds, and then let it out through your mouth with a whoosh sound in 8 seconds. That's a 4-7-8 breathing technique. You breathe through your nose for 4 seconds, hold it for 7 seconds, and then let it out through your mouth in 8 seconds. The reason why I said you should close your eyes when you do this is because you shut out all distractions and you do what is called mindful breathing. It means you bring one place where you are trying to breathe. We understand that these are unprecedented times, and it's for that reason that this session was organized. I mentioned when I started that we're hopeful that this will be, another step into ensuring that we continue to have this relate definitely about your mental health and are able to provide services that would ensure that you remain in optimal mental health. We are here at Tranquil and Quest, and as the slide that is projected shows, we are medical specialists that care about you and your family, either at home, in your relationship, or at the workplace. We're a private psychiatric hospital and drug addiction rehabilitation center in the heart of Lekki, and we provide premium and innovative services to individuals, families, and organizations via what is known as the Employee Assistance Program. We also offer psychiatric evaluations, medication protocols, substance abuse treatments, individual therapy, family therapy, group therapy, the Employee Assistance Program in our serene ambience, and pride ourselves as the first luxurious mental health facility. If you or anyone that you know, or that is a family member, is struggling with their mental health, I say to you this afternoon that by all means, please reach out for help. There's nothing wrong in getting help. There's nothing wrong in seeking help, either for you or for a family member. Your mental health is your wealth. And like the WHO definition would always say, that there is indeed no health without mental health. Whatever the condition is, it is better that you seek help early. Early intervention is likely to help reduce stigma, reduce discrimination, and of course, ensure that the individual lives an optimal life. It ensures an improved quality of life if we seek help early. We know that we live in an environment that is plagued by stigma, discrimination, and a lot of ignorance. But the truth is that help is available. And the earlier you seek help, the better. Of course, in seeking help with us, you are guaranteed of your confidentiality. Those are our guiding principles of confidentiality, empathy, support, and guidance. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you very much for your time and for being an amazing audience. At this time, I know that the chat boxes had gone up saying we should share our questions. So whatever questions we have as regards mental health issues or any question in general about any of the top things that I have spoken about this evening, if you're not comfortable unmuting yourself to speak, you can please use the chat box. We're here to respond to your questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank Dr. Gbonjubola for that insightful session. It's a very educative session. I can't let you know how impactful that has been. You know, some of those points we noted, I noted, you know, because those are sessions, those are words on marble. Words that will help you to cope with the stress, cope with the crisis. Indeed, the world is in a time of crisis. There is crisis everywhere. There's crisis in Nigeria, crisis in America, in Canada, crises everywhere generally. So as individuals, some of the coping skills she has talked about would help us, get those things, out of the way and be able to manage the pressures as they come. At this time, I would like to throw it out to the house. If you want to unmute your mic to ask your questions, you can. Already people have started asking questions. Like I have some 2 questions here. The first one is asking the doctor, how can I sleep better with the current work at home arrangement with children at home? That's the first question. The second person is asking for, how do I need a counselor for an addictive behavior, such as drinking and games? Somebody's asking that. I think I could give another one.
How do I deal with an abusive spouse in the house? So I think we're going to be taking it like that, and maybe some people may want to talk directly by unmuting their mic, but the doctor will answer some of these questions. So we welcome some of your questions as well. Please, you can keep your questions coming in.
All right, thank you very much. So I'll take the first question that says, how can I sleep better with the current work at home arrangement and with the children at home? Tough, I must say, right? Yes. So a few days ago, I was doing a presentation at past 11 to 1 o'clock, and I wasn't alone. My children were there. They had refused to sleep. The first thing I would ask you to do is understand your own timing and your own schedule. I know that right now there's a work and home blur because work doesn't ever seem to end anymore. We seem to just always keep working. But of course, I'm also aware that quite a number of organizations do not want us to break down. So there would be some limitations to what they would ask you to do at certain times. Is insomnia. One of the biggest problems in Lagos is insomnia, in which the individual has problems initiating and maintaining sleep. And if that happens at least 3 days of a week and has gone on for at least 3 times a month, there's a bit of a problem with that. And so what I would say to you is get a schedule that works for you. If you've gotten a schedule that works for you, you would have a time that you stop work, or at least you can put a pause on work and then you can put your children to sleep. The other thing that I would say is use the 10 commandments of sleep, or what we also know as sleep hygiene. And the 10 commandments of sleep pretty much have the do's, don'ts, and the avoid. Number 1 is have a particular time that you go to bed. Number 2 is use your bed for sleep and sex. I mean, we're adults here, so I can use the other S. That's what the bed is for. Not for your phone, not for your laptop, not for reading papers or signing documents. It's for sleep and sex. The third thing is you should ensure that your bed environment is very comfortable and conducive for you. Well laid, devoid of newspapers, drinks, or snacks. When you do go to bed, don't worry about not sleeping. Because if you worry about not sleeping, you are unlikely to get a good night's sleep. When you get to bed and you don't fall asleep within 20 minutes of sleep, of trying to get to sleep, get up and go and do something boring again. Once you feel sleepy, come back to the bed. The other one that I would say is you should have had your dinner at least 3 hours before bedtime, and it has to be something light. For exercise, you should have engaged in any form of exercise, except of course, sexercise, at least 3 hours before bedtime. It's also important to avoid the use of stimulants such as caffeine, either in coffee or in other carbonated drinks. Also, you can take a warm shower or a cold shower depending on the temperature of your environment. And you can also eat bananas and take a warm glass of milk before you go to bed. Bananas and milk are very high in serotonin, which is one of the neurotransmitters that can help us with sleep. Sleep is special. It has its own functions. And quite a number of times, people often say that it's the new status symbol. Sleep helps you restore your body, helps you with your memory, and it also helps you conserve energy. So please, by all means, sleep. And if you must sleep in the afternoon, your nap should not be more than 20 or 30 minutes. So that's the question about sleep. put a schedule in place, and then follow these 10 commandments of sleep that I have mentioned. The second question is about, is mental health being about suicide alone or about depression? So can a withdrawal symptom be avoiding friends? And in the course of the conversation, one thing that I did was I looked at quite a number of mental health conditions. And I mentioned suicide when I was speaking about depression. But suicide is not the only thing that covers mental health. Mental health, or better still, mental illness, because health means that everything is well. Illness, on the other hand, however, means that there is a problem going on. And mental illness can affect our cognition, for instance, with a condition like dementia. It can affect our emotions, for instance, in a situation like depression. It can affect our behavior, for instance, in a situation like psychosis. And it can affect pretty much everything about us. Mental health disorders can be mood disorders, anxiety disorders, eating disorders, sexual disorders, psychotic disorders, even personality disorders can be a mental health condition. And the question that you have asked here is that, can a withdrawal symptom be avoiding friends? And the answer is yes. So before you say that an individual has an abnormality, you should be able to look at what's normal and what's off normal. And if you are ordinarily a person who enjoys conversation with people, you light up the room every time you come in, you enjoy people's company, but all of a sudden you've noticed that you want to start keeping to yourself. You're isolating yourself, preferring your own company. You're not calling people. You're not replying their messages. You're not sending them text messages. It may be a subtle sign that a depressive illness may be starting. So some of the signs of depression that I mentioned earlier were mood, energy, interest. Everything is low. However, you can find that some people, their mood may be low, but they're still interested in things, or they're still motivated to do things. And that's where I need to talk about the fact that mental illness also are about intensity and severity. There can be mild depression, there can be moderate depression, there can be severe depression with psychosis, where the individual starts to hear voices of people they can't see, or have unusual beliefs about themselves. But once you notice that there's a deviation, either in yourself or a relative or a loved one, either in their behavior, their thoughts, their emotion, or their cognition, that is significant enough to affect their functioning in all facets of their lives, please, by all means, seek help, professional help on their behalf. The third question I have here this afternoon says, do I need a counselor for an addictive behavior, such as drinking and games betting? And what I would say to you is, you definitely need more than a counselor. You need a professional who is well-grounded in substance abuse and other addictive behavior, who is trained to help you walk through it. Here at Tranquil and Quest, we run a rehabilitation program that focuses on alcohol, other substances of abuse. And interestingly, quite a number of people will not know that there are other addictive behaviors, but there's somewhere in the brain that is called the pleasure center. And everything that gives an individual pleasure can be used excessively to a point where it becomes addictive. So you name it: food, alcohol, prescription medication, drugs of abuse, even sex can become addictive. And I like that you put the game bets in there. Even the internet can become addictive. And for that, it's important that you get a well-grounded assessment by a professional who will be able to help you identify what the underlying issues are. Because quite a number of these behaviors are learned, quite a number of these behaviors are used as adaptive measures to cope with the normal stresses of life or to escape reality. But there actually is that thin line between trying to cope and then becoming dependent on the substances. So we usually don't like to use the word addictive because it's quite derogatory. But yes, definitely, if an individual has addictive behavior such as drinking problems, games betting, pornography, impulsive, conditions. Yesterday, I was intimated about a condition where a young lady had been pulling out her own hair. Sometimes it's compulsive shopping. Sometimes it's compulsive gambling. Sometimes it's just pulling out your own hair. And interestingly, beyond pulling out the hair, the person was also eating the air. So for that, you actually have an impulse control disorder and an eating disorder. Some of these things need to be tackled by a professional. And here at Tranquil & Quest, we're able to provide that service for you. The third question says, how do I deal with an abusive spouse in the house? And when I hear about gender-based violence, for me, it's a very sensitive place, because the truth is no one deserves to be treated as if they don't matter or as if they can't amount to much. These days, the concern for me also is that, can people even recognize what abuse is? Many of us wait until it is the person starts to hit you or the person starts to abuse you, even sexually. And it's important that we know that abuse can be physical, it can be psychological, emotional, where the partner uses derogatory comments on you or makes you feel like you can't amount to much or that nothing you ever do is good enough. There can be neglect, where the partner does not attend to your needs, even when it is life-threatening. There can also be financial abuse, where the partner may say, well, no, don't work, you're the mother of my children, or you're the love of my life, stay at home. However, they are not giving you any money. You can't afford the basic necessities of life. And abuse can also be sexual. How do you deal with an abusive partner? I often always say that both the abuser and the abused should actually get help. If your partner is someone that you can talk to, depending on the type of abuse that you're currently going through, talk to them. If you feel like your partner needs someone who they respect to speak to them, you may get someone to speak to them. But what I have noticed over time, and what research has shown with abusive partners, is that abusive partners push away every source of support from an individual. Another thing I can say to you is empower yourself. But most importantly, I think you should get help. I would recommend that you get help, because you're also thinking, beyond the abuser abusing this person, why does this person also feel like they should stay in these relationships? Both the abuser and the abused definitely need some form of help to get through whatever it is that they're going through at that moment. For the abuser, it may be that it was a learned behavior. It's what he saw his parents do to one another. Or it's because he's so patriarchal, or it may even be a female who is abusing a male. Because very often, we put the stereotypes on men that, oh, it's men who are abusing females. But sometimes women also abuse men. Identify that you're being abused, reach out to sources of support. And your source of support may be your family, may be your friends, or it may be a network or a community that is supposed to help with either sexual and gender-based violence. Or you may also want to speak to a professional who is a therapist, who can guide you through what is going on and point you in the line of help. The last question that I have here is, how does one become a confident father while struggling financially during this pandemic period? And that's also a very sensitive question. Being financially constrained can be a big problem. It can be a big problem because reality stares you in the face. There are things you need to do, but you can't get them done. There are duties that are put in front of you because of your status in the home. But unfortunately, because it's a difficult time for almost everyone, you can't get them done. But I'll say to you that do not let your circumstances define who you become. It can be difficult, I know. However, with support, you can overcome. And that support starts in your home. So I always encourage that spouses are each other's best friends. They can tell each other anything and everything, including about their financial secrets. In fact, in marriage, we often say that there shouldn't be secrets. We should know about each other. We should be able to toe the lines with each other and support one another. And so I would say to you that in ensuring that you become a confident father, so this is me believing that you were previously confident, and I don't want your circumstances to define what you become just because you're struggling. I would say reach out to your greatest source of support. And I hope I am not wrong when I say that your greatest source of support is your spouse. Let them understand what it is that you are going through. It's a difficult time. This is what you can muster. And that by all means, you would appreciate any form of support. There's nothing wrong with being weak. Sometimes the reason we reach out for strength is not because we are weak, but because we don't want to stop being strong. Let them know what is going on. Let them know that you're struggling. And there's nothing wrong with struggling, as long as you are seen to continually make efforts at becoming better. There may be certain excesses that right now you may not be able to afford. Let them go if they are not the basic necessities. You need to learn how to live within the means that you have now and stop, trying to compare yourself with the Joneses. These are indeed difficult times, and what most people need right now are the bare necessities. If you can eat well, you can provide the basic things such as shelter, clothing for your family. You may be well, you may be doing what's best at this moment. But like I said, carry your partner along. If you have a supportive partner, fantastic. However, if you don't have a supportive partner, use your relationships. So you must have friends, you must have family, which is why we always encourage people never to push away family. Family will always be there for you, even when no one else is there. But please, by all means, live within your means. Don't let your situations define you or get the best of you. If you keep, thinking about it all alone and thinking that you are supposed to solve the world's problems and you can't solve the world's problems, it can actually lead you to a place of despair and push you to suffer physical and mental health conditions, which we don't want you to suffer. Many men don't like talking, but I encourage you today that there is nothing wrong with talking about when you have a difficulty. It doesn't make you less of a man. It doesn't make you less of an individual. Reach out and become more resilient. You can get resilience by reaching out to other people. One of the key points of resilience is connecting with and reaching out to other people. I encourage you today to please, by all means, reach out to other people. I have one question here that says, my husband hasn't come close to me in about a month. And, well, how do I handle my husband not coming close to me for 1 month and we're expecting children? So, I mean, there are a lot of things to ask here, but I would say to you, one of the first things I would say to you is, how long has this been going on for? Is this a usual pattern that your husband uses? For instance, maybe when you're fighting or when you're, having a quarrel of some sort, it may be his own way of, just pushing you away. But it's also important to ask that, is he going through any current difficulties that he has discussed with you? Have you tried speaking to him about the current situation on ground? And you may look at me like, why should it be my job to speak with him? But I mean, you are the one asking us this question now, so it must be pretty important to you. I would say try and engage your partner. Communication is everything. It's the foundation of many things that don't go right. So please, by all means, reach out to your partner. Ask them questions. if they don't seem to want to speak to you, you may look for someone they respect. At this point, you're probably wondering, oh, we're in a marriage, we're not supposed to call a third party into our marriage. Which is why, again, I would say our spouses should be our best friends. We should be able to find a way to find out what is going on with them and why exactly they are exhibiting whatever trait or behavior that they're exhibiting at that point. Have you made advances to him and he turned you off? Has he moved out of the room? You know, so the questions become bigger as we try to look at what the situation or the scenario is. But I assume that you may have noticed a pattern. And so this person has, you know, asked me again that is probably having a lot on his mind and he's not saying it. When I tried coming or asking for advice, he does not talk to me. This looks like a lot of work to do. And I would say, did this just start or you've always noticed this before? Your husband must have a love language. There must be something that he will be willing to respond to if you keep trying. It's said that even when we try hitting a rock, after a while, water will come out of the rock. It must be tough to keep doing that. So what you will do, or what I would encourage you to do, is try other methods. So, you know, sometimes women can be extremely persistent when they keep asking for things. Try to ask. After a while, give a little bit of silence. You may want to write him a note. You may want to reach him in other ways. And if all of this don't seem to work, maybe you should reach out for professional help so that you can learn how to manage your partner. A lot of us may have been married to people for so many years, but we still don't know them. If you're able to learn emotional intelligence and the skill of communicating with people who will not even speak to you, you'll be surprised that even in his not speaking, he's actually saying quite a lot. But if you do need professional help, especially because I can perceive that this is becoming somewhat distressing for you, please, by all means, reach out to us. We'll be here to offer our support, guidance, and expertise on what we can do for you going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to say a big thank you to the doctor. The doctor has really tried. Yes, in fact, we've overshot our time because we're looking at the time. We thank you for all the answers you gave. And I'm sure any further conversation, you know, I'm sure participants can reach us. We can also reach the doctor. If you want to talk to the doctor, of course, you can always reach us. What we have also done is to open up our platforms, our social media platforms, so you can chat us up, you know, for whatever concerns you have, and we can take it up from there. At this junction, some of our partners, BGC Pora, some of our executives are around, but I don't know, Mrs. Yusuf, Mrs. Marufa Yusuf, she's the corporate affairs manager. She has been part of us since morning. We'd like to appreciate her. We'd like to appreciate everybody that has joined this broadcast. And at this point, we'd like to have a closing remark. I don't know if she's still there. BGC Pora representative. A closing remark from BGC Pora.
Amen. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much.
Okay, my name is Marufa Yusuf. I'm the one representing BGC Pora. Firstly, we would like to appreciate Tranquil and Quest for this wonderful session. We sincerely appreciate it on behalf of our residents and the BGC Pora executive. And also to appreciate all our residents in attendance for taking their time to join it. And I'm very sure each and every one of us have been able to learn one or two things. So it is our plan to continue sessions like this to enlighten people, because it's really, really, really a trying time for everyone. And I pray the Almighty will be with us all. Thank you, Tranquil and Quest, again. We look forward to working together to organize more of this program for our residents. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Patience, and I would like to thank Tranquil and Quest. I am the Social Secretary of the estate, I'd like to thank Tranquil and Quest for organizing this program. Yeah, some of us think we might not need it, but listening to them, I've learned a whole lot, especially how I must sleep when the children are around. And also like to thank the residents also for making our time to participate. We know we have a lot of things to deal with at this moment in time, but we would like to appreciate you all and also request that you can reach out to the management office if you need more of this session so that we can always bring it to your right through to your home despite the pandemic, so we can always be in touch. And thank you, everybody, and thank you, Tranquil and Quest.
Thank you for this session. So you can continue to engage with us on social media, Instagram, Facebook. We'll be there to reach you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can the recorded video be shared?